use cases of Web3 through DePIN.
This episode is sponsored by PIC, the Layer 1 blockchain purpose-built to power DePINs. PIC is about to launch. Check their website at pic.network right now. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub here. Today we have Feroz, Head of Business Development at Ankr, a company revolutionizing the way we interact with blockchain data in DePIN and other projects as well, kind of like a server, RPC nodes, and much, much more. Thanks so much for joining the podcast. It's really nice to have you here today. We were actually together in a panel, let's say a few weeks ago at ECC in Brussels. So I heard you got some COVID after you got home, right? So I hope you're recovering and everything. Let's start talking about yourself, what you do, what's your role at Ankr, and your background.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great panel out at ECC, great experience overall. Definitely caught something on the way back, but it doesn't take away from the experience I had there for sure. So my name is Feroz. I've been with Ankr for about 2 months now, so I'm fairly new within the company. I lead customer success, so I help figure out the best way to onboard our customers to make sure that they're the most successful they can be within our ecosystem using all of our tools and resources. And I started my career in technology at Samsung in traditional technology, moved into crypto in about 2019. I was really interested in the concept and the technology, obviously a little bit of trading, made money, lost more. But I got really, really interested in the actual tech behind it, started deploying a couple of tokens on some EVM blockchains. And without a background in software development, being able to deploy tokens and create something in such a new technology was just really, really exciting for me. I got bit by the blockchain bug, and I've been down that rabbit hole ever since. Here I am. It's been a great experience. I started at Tron originally. I was at a layer 1 for about 2.5 years, and again recently joined Ankr. Major infrastructure company. It's actually the RPCs I used to build on Tron while I was working at Tron. So I was very, very knowledgeable and experienced with the Ankr ecosystem already when I joined the company. So it was a pretty easy transition into the role that I'm in now.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's like getting. I think it's fun that you say getting bitten by the blockchain bug. That's basically what happened with me 4 years ago. I've been in crypto for, I don't know, over 12 years, 13 years, or something like that. But actually, it was after just the idea of like decentralized infrastructure that I decided to actually go all in, right? I've been following crypto on the sidelines from like the ICO of Ethereum, early days of Bitcoin, and a lot of things like that. But then actually the decentralized infrastructure is something that I'm extremely passionate about. And understanding also all the different projects, that's something that I really like about it is it's not only DeFi, it's so many different angles, different projects, energy, like servers, RPC nodes like yourself, which led me to the next question. Can you explain what Ankr is and its vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the core level, Ankr is an infrastructure provider for Web3, right? We run nodes for over 55 blockchains and allow developers to connect to and build on all of these blockchains that we support. In addition to that, since we are already running nodes for a lot of these blockchains, we are also validators. And so we help secure a lot of them. And that moves us into our staking infrastructure and staking services, which we also provide for many of the blockchains we support. We were actually one of the first to create an LST on Ethereum. And then last but not least, we also provide full blockchain creation services. So it's better known as ROS now, right? Roll up as a service. You can consider it roll-ups, side chains, app chains, L2s, L3s, or L1s with all of their necessary framework, with validators, with RPC endpoints for people to be able to build on, including public endpoints. So people can build for free on a lot of these blockchains until they hit a certain threshold, and then they get into like a premium account or something like that. So in general, we're an infrastructure company. We provide decentralized physical infrastructure. So the unique part, which I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but our nodes are all run on bare metal servers on 6 continents. So it's one of the most geographically distributed, decentralized physical infrastructure organizations within blockchain.
Yeah, no, this is like impressive, right? 55 blockchains that you can. I'm checking the website, have like basically a lot of those, all the ones that I know, a lot that I haven't heard about that as well. And it must be like super hard to also maintain everything running, right? Because like there's each layer one or layer two or roll up, whatever you want to call it, has so many updates all the time. So you always need to be up to date on how that works.
I honestly, I have to give a big shout out to our engineering team. They are one of the most creative and definitely one of the smartest engineering teams that I've ever interacted with. But yeah, it's, a lot of the chains are EVM, right? So people think, oh, it's easy. You just spin up another EVM node. But that's, maybe let's say 30, 40, even 50% of the chains are EVM and they're sort of similar. We still have another 25 or 30 chains that are very unique, very different. And each of the teams, even if their framework is similar, each of the teams is different. How they build their stack is different. How they operate with updates and communicate with their ecosystems and their providers is very, very different. So yeah, it is definitely complicated. It's rewarding to be able to support so many chains, but it's a very large and complicated endeavor for sure.
Yeah, that must be so much work. I just get tired just of thinking, like following up with all those projects and everything that's happening, right?
You got to have systems in place, man. That's all it is. It's all about the systems you have.
Yeah, no, it must be. Otherwise, you guys are gonna go crazy. Imagine if you have to manually go check all the updates, right? That wouldn't be very feasible. What is the advantage? Like you're saying, like you guys set up like bare metal machines around the world. People can do that. What is the decentralized aspect of that, right? Because of course, it shouldn't be running on people's houses. I think that's one of the key things because it needs to be like a strong server with a fast response time for actually to be usable. So how does the decentralized part of this puzzle fits in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was kind of the idea when Ankr first started, right? Instead of everyone having to run their own nodes, we want to be able to provide an easy way for everyone to be able to access the blockchains they want to build on. And so the decentralized part of that is one, because we do have bare metal servers, a lot of RPC providers, node runners will run on cloud, generally on AWS, which is isolated to very specific regions, very specific areas. And they also have, points of failure that are unique to cloud services, versus all of our nodes are run on bare metal servers. They are distributed over 6 continents and over 50 independently owned data centers throughout the world. So whether it's, government intervention, whether it's an act of God, whether power goes out or internet goes out within a certain region or something is blocked, we still have 49 plus other data centers in different regions with different regulations, with different internet providers, with different power sources. So there's a very, very big decentralized aspect and a distributed geographical distribution and decentralization, as in where they're located, who is, what unique aspects there are to each of their geographical and regional and countrywide specific locations. Will have different reasons why they're either more resilient or more prone to issues, and we have also ways that we make sure that the end user isn't affected by a node that doesn't run. So if in a certain country, like if a storm happens and one of our data centers goes down, we do have load balance nodes. Everything is run in node clusters, so we can always shift it to the next closest geographical node if one goes down. There's failover. So if it fails, it doesn't work, we can push to another node, we can push to another cluster. And we can always make sure that no matter what happens in one region or in one area or for one user, it's always being corrected and it's being pushed to the next most high performing node or region or cluster, whatever the case is.
This sounds like a very interesting challenge. It's like something that I really like to build, like at Hotspotty, since the beginning, we never relied also on cloud computing. It's always been like bare metal machines because like in the beginning of Helium, we had a lot of processing that we needed to be done. The blockchain actually was very inefficient for accessing the information of those antennas. So then we had to have like a lot of, replicas and then everything run on bare metal. Otherwise, our poor pockets would be empty much faster, right? For being like a bootstrap company, that's another thing that's quite important. the cost benefit of a bare metal is much, much higher, let's say, than using AWS or something like that.
Long term, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I run a Ankr node as well, or you guys are the only ones who run the nodes?
No, so we run the nodes. We do allow since we work so closely with all of our blockchain partners, we do allow for nodes that are run by the blockchain foundations themselves, and we also work with them on providing additional nodes run by other partners. So we even have nodes run by direct competitors of ours within our node clusters, to make sure that our users are always getting the highest performance. So not only are we always cross-checking with foundation or blockchain team nodes to make sure our nodes are at block height and they're performing well, but our clusters, for example, an example I think I shared at ETHCC as well is Polygon is one of our biggest clients, and our node clusters for Polygon have 8 to 10 Ankr nodes. You'll see a couple of Polygon technology nodes. You also see a couple of quick node nodes. So direct competitors of ours, but very close partners of Polygon. And again, if they're a trusted partner of the blockchain that we're running nodes for, we'll also feature them within our node clusters to make sure that we're providing the best experience for our end users at the end of the day, which is our goal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing overall, is for the users who are actually using the product don't have any issue. It's very streamlined. It's easy, understandable. Like the website looks beautiful, looks very streamlined to actually use any of the APIs that you guys have. So instead of me having to jump in between a lot of other different providers, I can just use you guys, right? Because, for example, one thing that we're currently developing on the DePIN Hub platform is what we call DePIN score. It's like we do on-chain analysis of people's wallets to know how good of a DePIN citizen they are, how many actually activities have they deployed in terms of DePIN. They install antenna on Solana, they did something on Polygon, IoTex, Peak, etc. And for that, actually, you need to check a lot of different blockchains, right? And I think using Ankr is the perfect solution for that. We're already in this ecosystem. Could be much easier to start interacting with those RPC nodes instead of jumping between a bunch of different provider, different billing. I think that's another one that's quite important, right? I saw that you guys have also a staking service, the Ankr staking. How does that? Why do you have that, and how does the token evolve around that?
So Ankr staking basically is our staking arm, and Ankr was one of the pioneers of liquid staking. So basically we want to solve the capital efficiency problem of proof of stake networks. Not everyone can run the hardware. Not everyone has 32 ETH, and for ETH as the example, and not everyone, even if they have it, want to lock it away for the long term and not be able to access it. So staking in general is very important for proof of stake networks. So we want to make sure that we're running staking infrastructure, allowing users to at least contribute to the security of the network. And then on top of that, we also have liquid staking services that allow people to stake their assets and secure the network while also continuing to be active within the DeFi ecosystem or the ecosystem in general in whatever way they choose. So it's something that we saw value in very, very early on as people were shifting more to proof of stake, in terms of helping secure those networks. Obviously, that's just goes right along line with running the nodes and running the infrastructure. And then when liquid staking started becoming a conversation, since we already had experience from Genesis, right, from helping build the chains, building the validators, and staking services, jump straight into liquid staking, Ankr ETH being one of the first ones that was created within this world. So I think it's a very core part, especially of a lot of the blockchains that we have now. Even a lot of proof of work chains have been shifting to proof of stake, just for efficiency reasons. And then staking, of course, becomes a very, very core part of securing those networks. And that's also a very core part of Ankr's infrastructure offering.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just for the skill set that your team has on building and running all these blockchains, no better team is suited for running like staking services, right? Because also it's very important for people to listen to know, like if you're going to run your own, let's say Ethereum staking server, and then your server goes down, this 32 ETH that you have, you're going to get penalized. You're going to lose your money, right? So it's very important that whoever is running those servers really know what they're doing and know what's the consequences of doing a bad job, basically. So
Yeah. That's at the high end, right? We also have, I mean, honestly, people like me, I'm not putting up 32 ETH and running my own validator, but I also want to be able to earn some off of the ETH that I'm holding. So to be able to stake that, to be able to earn some yield and also contribute to the security of the network with, less risk is definitely a win-win for me.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, let's talk a little bit. What are the key features that you think are important on the Ankr platform? And because looking at the website, it looks like a very good Web 2 solution, right? Like in terms of, I call Web 2 solution, but like it doesn't look hard to use, basically, right? So what are the key features that you like on the platform?
Man, honestly, I'm very boring. I like being able to access blockchains quickly. What really got me was just the super low latency speed. So if you're a developer, if you're a builder in blockchain, you understand the importance of being able to reliably and quickly access chains and information, especially if you're building something that you're expecting a lot of people to use. You want something that's super scalable and you want something that's very, very low latency. And that's where Ankr really comes into play. Like I said, we support over 55 different chains. We also have our index APIs or advanced APIs. Since we are running bare metal servers, all of our nodes are, we have full and archive nodes. So we basically sync from Genesis block with the majority of the blockchains we support, which is kind of unique in terms of node runners and RPC providers. A lot of people don't realize that not everyone offers that because it's much more expensive to do that on a cloud server. So we have a little bit more functionality. We also allow, like I said, on any public endpoint that we provide, up to 1 million calls a day per user for free, which again is a very, very high rate compared to a lot of people in the space, mainly because we can afford to do that with bare metal servers. It doesn't cost as much for us. And so we want to allow people to have access and really get a feel for what we're building and how they can use it, and not get cut off or charged too early within that process and kind of kill their motivation. So yeah, having the advanced API access, having multi-chain call functionality, so you don't have to build new integrations for each chain. You just use our multi-chain capability and just add the into your code, ETH, BNB, like whatever, etc. Calls you want to make for whichever chains. You just add the chain tag on there, and the calls will run across all of the chains at once. So it's very efficient, very quick, and very easy to add functionality for more chains, which I think is very important, especially in this new multi-chain world that we're living in. Everybody knows, like, we've been going towards this for the past couple of years, but we're getting further and further and further into abstracting what chains people are using. And so you want to make it as easy as possible for the developers to give their users access to as many chains as possible, as efficiently, as quickly as possible, while also abstracting the need to know which chain you're using, or to have to put in a lot of work to add that functionality of another chain.
Yeah, exactly. I think for projects like ours, building this multi-chain analysis tooling, it's the perfect set. So you don't need to like I said before, to have multiple RPC providers and then not just that, right? Like exactly what you said, to have one function that you can just change. Like, it's a lot of things that are streamlined, and it's much faster for me to just jump between blockchains without having to rewrite the whole code or change the programming language as well. I think that could be an important one, right? Because if I need to be Rust or Solidity or Erlang or something like that, it would be like a lot of work. It can be done, but it's just a pain to maintain and to make sure that everything's working. Which brings me to the next topic about revenue. How does Ankr generate revenues? What is as a business? What is the business model?
I mean, like I said, the core business is running blockchains. So we do work very closely with foundations, blockchain teams to run their RPC nodes. We start with nodes that are already geographically distributed between the US, Europe, and Asia. So that in and of itself, like deploying physical node infrastructure and supporting these chains, is really our core business. Again, along with the staking services that we offer. And last but not least, the biggest line of product that I've been working with lately is our ROS product. So building entire blockchains for teams, whether it's enterprise customers, whether it's Web3 native customers that just want to offload the engineering of the blockchain building, or like I said, enterprise institutional customers from Web2 that want the technology but don't have the time or the resources to invest in a Web3 engineering team. So those really like building that core infrastructure, whether it's running infrastructure for current blockchains or literally building the entire blockchain infrastructure from the ground up for other industries and businesses, is really the main business model.
I know that you've been into Ankr for just a few months. Do you know a little bit about its inception? Like, how did it get started, and when was that? Like, how long the team has been building this project?
I believe it started in 2017. I'm not 100% positive on the exact date, but I know, so the three co-founders, Ryan, Chandler, and Stanley, Ryan and Chandler were roommates at UC Berkeley, where is actually right up the street from me right now. And Stanley, who was our CTO, was working at Amazon at the time. He was an engineer at Amazon. And Chandler ended up getting an internship and working alongside Stanley at Amazon while Ryan and Chandler were roommates. So they were already very big in crypto and in blockchain. And I know they had ideas and they had started working on other things. But I think the core idea for this was really to work and to find a way to help builders build in different blockchain ecosystems, because it was such an early time. There was a handful of blockchains that were popping up and not very many resources that allowed people to build within these ecosystems. It was much more complicated, obviously, than it is today. So the idea was very simple. It was just to help developers and builders onboard easily into these blockchain ecosystems and start building. And that was really the core product that's still been successful to today, is just building access to blockchains for developers and builders and really just people that are interested to connect and get engaged in these ecosystems and actually start being able to experiment and build cool stuff. And that same idea has just kind of flourished ever since.
Nice. Yeah, because it's definitely a blocker, right? The difficulty to get started in a blockchain, especially I think at that time, Ethereum, which is its own programming language, people need to start over. I couldn't really reuse whatever you learned at the time and start moving into it. But actually, of course, now like Solidity is such a big programming language, there's a lot of people already using it for quite some time, right? But yeah, I think it's very interesting. And then, so you guys, basically, we call it, I guess people call it OG in crypto when you started in 2017 already. So I guess if you do before that, you are like a grandfather of the OG. I don't know. Why have more than 50 DePINs choose to build on Peak? It's super fast, scalable, low cost, and offers builders a ready-to-deploy DePIN backend. Peak is also home to the fastest-growing DePIN ecosystem in Web3, with lots of relevant enterprise, more than 1 million vehicles and devices, and over 50 DePIN across 18 industries. And that's just the beginning. Building a DePIN? Peak's DePIN Grant program is focused on giving you everything you need to launch record breakers in record time. The Peak Network in Tokyo will launch later this month. Check out Peak's channels for more details. You can find links in the description of this podcast. How do you see now? Because I mean, looking at the website, you guys have so many like resources and features, staking, RPC nodes, etc. How do you see the project evolving now for the next few years to come?
A lot of the core business has just kind of grown and stayed very similar to what it started as, but there is a lot of additional parts of the business that have expanded a lot. Ross being one of them, so building multiple side chains, whether it's new L1s, L2s, or even full L3 ecosystems. I think that's going to be a really big part of our evolution and helping them connect to each other. And again, back to abstraction, just helping all of these blockchains build their ecosystems in a way that the end user doesn't have to know which chain they're using. So providing more resources in that vein, I think, is very important. And then we also have Neura, the AI blockchain. So being able to decentralize access to GPU power and, especially with the prevalence of AI and how much it's grown, and it's going to continue to grow and it's going to continue to need and use a lot of resources. And so for people to be able to access those resources that aren't readily available, especially like, GPUs, the good ones that we need nowadays, are not only very, very expensive, they're very hard to come by. So being able to give access to, everyday users that only need a specific amount of compute, I think is going to be very important. And so that I think is going to be a big line. And then last but not least, something you touched on earlier, right? Being a decentralized infrastructure provider. Currently, a lot of our infrastructure is still designed and operated directly by us because that's the way that we kind of have to do it right now. But long term, what I would really like to see, and kind of what I've heard rumblings of, is being able to expand even our node runners and our networks of nodes to more individual providers. But before we can do that, we have to be able to verify a lot of different things, right? Like security, performance, reliability. There's a lot of different things that we have to verify before allowing third parties into our node infrastructure. Security is always number one priority. So I think that's something on the longer tail, right? More like 3 to 5 years once we have frameworks and infrastructure built to be able to validate and verify node runners outside of our framework without having to personally know them, without having to have that trust. I think that's going to lead to the next really like explosion of infrastructure growth. Like if we're not already decentralized and distributed and reliable enough right now, I think that's going to really, really be the next step up in terms of true decentralization and distribution.
Yeah, I know. I do think that's the right way to do it, right? A lot of projects, you need to start more centralized. A lot of things needs to be well done. Everything needs to be in place and needs to be well thought out and solid. And then slowly you decentralize as you grow. I think from history, most projects that started 100% decentralized, they're very slow to grow, right? It takes a lot more work to get it and a lot more risk as well.
Somebody said it before, and I think decentralization is definitely a spectrum. And if you want to get more decentralized, you have to do it properly and you have to do it very systematically. And there are definitely benefits to being decentralized, but you have to make sure you're very thoughtful about how you do it. And I think we're moving in the right direction at the right pace.
Exactly. I mean, like for example, projects such as StorageJ, right? There's like this storage project that you can become a node operator, put your idle resource there, but everything goes through their own website, their platform. You can pay with credit card, you can pay with tokens as well. So in a way, I like to think that clients shouldn't really care about how the infrastructure runs in the backend as long as it works well, right? And that goes in also in the idea that you say like, okay, people should be using blockchain to build the solutions. In the end, with the multi-chain, you shouldn't even really need to worry so much about which chain are you using. Maybe like, okay, each chain has its own features. You're going to, kind of like pick and choose the features that you need. But then it's just like infrastructure at the end of the day, right? It's just the backend. The real users don't need to know. So I think that's very important to take into account as well. For people to know more about Ankr, do you have any last remarks, and how they can find more about the project, follow up on X, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, exactly what you said, right? Ankr.com, Ankr on X. We also have a Discord and Telegram. We're constantly posting on our socials, so you can keep up with what we're doing. If you're interested in learning more about Ankr or building within any of our 55 plus blockchain ecosystems, feel free to check out Ankr.com. We have all the resources there for everything you'd want to learn. Our documentation is very thorough. And of course, you can always find me and our team in our Discord and Telegram channels. So if you ever have any questions, hop in, reach out. We're always happy to help.
Yeah, thanks so much for being in the episode. It was a pleasure. And yeah, hope to see you in the next conference as well.
Dude, absolutely, man. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for having me again.
And for you listening to the podcast, make sure to check in and subscribe, and on Twitter, anywhere we have the podcast, on YouTube, like Spotify, and make sure that you always go to deepinhub.io, subscribe to the newsletter. There's a lot of cool content coming to you every day, and more people like Feroz and Ankr in the podcast. Thanks so much. Have a great day and keep on rocking, man.